losing my mind in Enfield Factory. I'm loving it. Hell yeah. Hello, hello. Hi. Okay. Okay. Does this sound? Does it sound good? Does everything sound good? Hello, everyone. All right. Hello, how do you? Have a very fun time. Okay, okay. Alright. We're going to be doing a very special stream. Sound is good, 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 good. Hello, Dragon, hello, Walters. Today is gonna be a very special stream. I'm gonna be reading fairy tales. Resounding fast. Yes, go. Okay, Sushi, thank you so much for staying as long as you can. Today we are reading Grimm's fairy tales. And I hope that you all will enjoy this nice and cozy read along or reading so that you guys can get some good sleep. Yeah, okay, let's start then. The Frog King. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful. But the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well. And when the day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. And when she was dull, wait, hold on. Okay, okay. And when she was dull, she took out a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it. And this ball was her favorite plaything. Now, it so happened that on one occasion, the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but onto the ground beyond, and rolled straight into the water. this, she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, "What ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so that even a stone would show pity." She looked round to the side from whence the voice came, and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, is it thou?" she said. "I am weeping for my golden ball which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help thee, but what wilt thou give me if I bring thy plaything up again?" "Whatever thou wilt have, dear frog," said she. "My clothes, my pearls and jewels, and even the golden crown which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and jewels, or thy golden crown. But if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at thy little table, and eat off thy little golden plate, and drink out of thy little cup, and sleep on thy little bed, if thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below and bring thee thy golden ball up again." "Well, yes," said she, "I promise thee all thou wishest, if thou wilt but bring me my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk. He lives in the water with the other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short while came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog. "Take me with thee. I can't run as thou canst." But what did it avail him to scream his croak, croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping splish-splash, splish-splash, up the marble staircase, and when it had got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door to in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what art thou so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry thee away?" "Ah, no," replied she. "It is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "What does a frog want with thee?" "Ah, dear father, yesterday, as I was in the forest sitting by the well playing. My golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried, so the frog brought it out again for me, and because he insisted so on it, I promised him he should be my companion, but I never thought he would be able to come out of his water. And now he is outside there and wants to come in to me. In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Dost thou not know what thou saidst to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Then said the king, "That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go and let him in." She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her, step by step, to her chair. There he sat and cried, "Lift me up beside thee." She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table. And when he was on the table, he said, "Now push thy little golden plate nearer to me, that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, "I have eaten and am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into thy little room and make thy little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by thee." So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in a corner. But when she was in bed, he crept up to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I will tell thy father." Then she was terribly angry and took him up and threw him with all her might against the wall. "Now thou wilt be quiet, odious frog," said she. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son, with beautiful, kind eyes. He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. Then he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together to his kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and the next morning when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads, and were harnessed with golden chains, and behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master was changed into a frog that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid round his heart, lest it should burst with grief sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him as if something had broken. So he turned around and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is a band from a heart, which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking, but it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of faithful Henry, because his master was set free and was happy. That was beautiful. That was very beautiful. That was very, very, very beautiful. Sure. This is not the fairy tales manga. This is not. Although I'm going to get a pillow. I'll be back. Yes, very true, Agnes. So they do get to read a nice story again. Alright. Hello, by the way, everyone, and welcome who came in. It's story time. It's nice to see you all. Thank you, thank you. Alright, next story we will be reading. The Giant and the tailor. A certain tailor who was great at boasting but ill at doing took it into his head to go abroad for a while and look about the world. As soon as he could manage it, he left his workshop and wandered on his way. Over hill and dale, sometimes hither, sometimes thither, but ever on and on. Once, when he was out, he perceived in the blue distance a steep hill, and behind it a tower reaching to the clouds, which rose up out of a wild dark forest. Thunder and lightning, cried the tailor. What is that? And as he was strongly goaded by curiosity, he went boldly towards it. But what made the tailor open his eyes and mouth when he came near it was to see that the tower had legs and leapt in one bound over the steep hill, and was now standing as an all-powerful giant before him. "What dost thou want here, thou tiny fly's leg?" cried the giant with a voice as if it were thundering on every side. The tailor whimpered, "I want just to look about and see if I can earn a bit of bread for myself in this forest." "If that is what thou art after," said the giant, "thou mayst have a place with me." "If it must be, why not? What wages shall I receive?" "Thou shalt hear what thou wages thou shalt have. Every year 365 days, and when it is leap year, one more into the bargain. Does that suit thee?" "All right," replied the tailor, and thought in his own mind, "A man must cut his coat according to his cloth. I will try to get away as fast as I can." On this the giant said to him, "Go, little ragamuffin, and fetch me a jug of water." "Had I not better bring the well itself at once, and the spring too?" asked the boaster, and went with the pitcher to the water. "What? The well and the springs too?" growled the giant in his beard, for he was rather clownish and stupid, and began to be afraid. "That knave is not a fool. He has a wizard in his body. Be on thy guard, old Hans. There is no serving man for thee." When the tailor had brought the water, the giant bade him go into the forest and cut a couple of blocks of wood, and bring them back. Why not the whole forest at once with one stroke? The whole forest, young and old, with all that is there, both rough and smooth? Asked the little tailor, and went to cut the wood. "What? The whole forest, young and old, with all that is there, both rough and smooth, and the well in its spring too?" growled the credulous giant in his beard, and was still more terrified. "The knave can do much more than bake apples, and has a wizard in his body. Be on thy guard, old Hans. This is no serving man for thee." When the tailor had brought the wood, the giant commanded him to shoot 2 or 3 wild boars for supper. "Why not rather 1,000 at one shot, and bring them all here?" inquired the ostentatious tailor. What? Cried the timid giant in great terror. Let well alone tonight and lie down to rest. The giant was so terribly alarmed that he could not close an eye all night long for thinking what would be the best way to get rid of this accursed sorcerer of a servant. Time brings counsel. Next morning, the giant and the tailor went to a marsh, round which stood a number of willow trees. Then said the giant, Hark thee, tailor, seat thyself on one of the willow branches. I long of all things to see if thou art big enough to bend it down. All at once the tailor was sitting on it, holding his breath and making himself so heavy that the bow bent down. When, however, he was compelled to draw breath, it hurried him, for unfortunately he had not put his goose in his pocket, so high into the air that he never was seen again, and this to the great delight of the giant. If the tailor has not fallen down again, he must be hovering about in the air. What a wacky story that one is. I like that. I like that a lot. You must be honest. That's funny, I love the giant. The giant was really cute, I'm not gonna lie. I really liked the giant. Hold up, because I have to find out where I'm streaming these videos again. Because they should be in background sound, but they're not. Where is it getting saved to? Hold up, because I had to see something real quick. Video output? Isn't it output? It's in my videos recording that. My videos. Ah! There it is! Sorry, this is like a really big big project I'm currently doing, so I have to figure out where I'm gonna put the videos. So yeah. Nice. Okay. Hello, Edge. How are you? So, I have plans for this that I should have probably specified. So, this is going to be a series. It's going to obviously span a lot of parts, and I want to eventually make it into one finite video. So, I am streaming obviously, but I'm also recording through Audacity, but I'm also recording the VOD of each time when I read this story. So that like us interacting and all that is not like something I have to like edit, because I'm not good at editing. And that's stressful. So I'm like debating about for the full on video to have like different sound effects than what you guys are hearing, but you guys are gonna be able to have like obviously all of the streams and the raw audio to listen to if you're on Patreon. But obviously all the streams, you know, because the streams are here and they're not gonna get delisted or anything. They're gonna stay here. But it's gonna be a very long term project of mine that I'm very interested and I want to do, because there's many pages to this book, right? So we ended at page 16, and there are 675 pages to this book. So it's gonna be very fun, very relaxing. I'm really excited to do this, and like just really just do this. I'm really excited to. So I hope you guys will enjoy it and enjoy the coziness, the relaxing vibes that we're doing together. That's a lot of pages. Yeah. The whole book will eventually be one video, yes. I want to do a master, like a master video with all of like what we've done throughout the however many months or maybe year we take to do this. And I want to, oh thank you Ernesto, I want to do this at least every week. So yeah. I want to do this and just have a nice time with you guys. Hello, Saber! Welcome home! Hi, baby. There are many books, or many stories in here, and many of them have a lot of hard words. Because it's like thou'st and thee and wilt and all of that, so I'm excited. How many bananas it takes, we'll get there. Yeah. I hope everything gets better for you, Anime. I'm hoping so. Why not have single story short videos? I could do that, but then I would be like, I feel like uploading one short a day is so much that like if I upload like 2 shorts a day, that's too much, no? Usually my shorts that aren't Uma Musume related are posted for Sunday. I think it would be a cute idea though. Habiba. We're going to a water park tomorrow. Have fun at the water park. Thank you for the pass. I'm sending much love and good energy to you all, Anime. Also, hello, Kyujin. So yeah. I don't know, you know, shorts could be like 3 and 10 minutes long from videos though. We could try that. But yeah, I wanna do like a master video, so I'm excited. And yeah, not a YouTube short, just a small video. No, yeah, we can do that. I'm not gonna upload it like Wednesdays, but I also got to continue doing my League of Legends reading, because we're still doing that too. I don't want you guys to think I'm not doing that, because I am. Also, yeah, alright, let's continue with our reading though. The Little Peasant. There was a certain village wherein no one lived but really rich peasants, and just one poor one, whom they called the Little Peasant. He had not even so much as a cow, and still less money to buy one, and yet he and his wife did so wish to have one. One day he said to her, "Hark you, I have a good thought. There is our gossip the carpenter. He shall make us a wooden calf, and paint it brown so that it looks like any other, and in time it will..." Thank you, chocolate. We'll keep that in because it's funny. And in time, it will certainly get big and be a cow. The women also liked the idea, and their gossip the carpenter cut and planned the calf, and painted it as it ought to be, and made it with its head hanging down as if it were eating. Next morning, when the cows were being driven out, the little peasant called the cowherd in and said, "Look, I have a little calf there, but it is still small and has still to be carried." The cowherd said, "All right," and took it in his arms and carried it to the pasture and set it among the grass. The little calf always remained standing like one which was eating, and the cowherd said, "It will soon run alone, just look how it eats already." At night, when he was going to drive the herd home again, he said to the calf, "If thou canst stand there and eat thy fill, thou canst also go on thy 4 legs. I don't care to drag thee home again in my arms." But the little peasant stood at his door and waited for his little calf, and when the cowherd drove the cows through the village, and the calf was missing, he inquired where it was. The cowherd answered, "It is still standing out there eating. It would not stop and come with us." But the little peasant said, "Oh, but I must have my beast back again." Then they went back to the meadow together, but someone had stolen the calf, and it was gone. The cowherd said, "It must have run away." The peasant, however, said, "Don't tell me that," and led the cowherd before the mayor, who for his carelessness condemned him to give the peasant a cow for the calf which had run away. And now the little peasant and his wife had the cow for which they had so long wished, and they were heartily glad, but they had no food for it, and could give it nothing to eat, so it soon had to be killed. They salted the flesh, and the peasant went into town and wanted to sell the skin there, so that he might buy a new calf with the proceeds. On the way, he passed by a mill, and there sat a raven with broken wings. And out of pity he took him and wrapped him in the skin. As, however, the weather grew so bad and there was a storm of rain and wind, he could go no farther, and turned back to the mill and begged for shelter. The miller's wife was alone in the house, and said to the peasant, "Lay thyself on the straw there," and gave him a slice of bread with cheese on it. The peasant ate it, and lay down with his skin beside him, and the women thought, "He is tired and has gone to sleep." In the meantime came the parson. The miller's wife received him well and said, "My husband is out, so we will have a feast." The peasant listened, and when he heard about feasting, he was vexed that he had been forced to make shift with a slice of bread with cheese on it. Then the woman served up 4 different things: roast meat, salad, cakes, and wine. Just as they were about to sit down and eat, there was a knocking outside. The woman said, "Oh heavens, it is my husband." She quickly hid the roast meat inside the tiled stove, the wine under the pillow, the salad on the bed, the cakes under it, and the parson in the cupboard in the entrance. Then she opened the door for her husband and said, "Thank heaven thou art back again. There is such a storm it looks as if the world were coming to an end." The miller saw the peasant lying on the straw and asked, "What is that fellow doing here?" "Ah," said the wife, "the poor knave came in the storm and rain and begged for shelter. So I gave him a bit of bread and cheese and showed him where the straw was." The man said, "I have no objection, but be quick and get me something to eat." The woman said, "But I have nothing but bread and cheese." "I am contented with anything," replied the husband. "So far as I am concerned, bread and cheese will do," and looked at the peasant and said, "Come and eat some more with me." The peasant did not require to be invited twice, but got up and ate. After this, the miller saw the skin in which the raven was lying on the ground and asked, "What hast thou there?" The peasant answered, "I have a soothsayer inside it." "Can he foretell anything to me?" said the miller. "Why not?" answered the peasant. "But he only says 4 things, and the 5th he keeps to himself." The miller was curious and said, "Let him foretell something for once." Then the peasant pinched the raven's head so that he croaked and made a noise like "Krr, krr." The miller said, "What did he say?" The peasant answered, "In the first place, he says that there is some wine hidden under the pillow." "Bless me!" cried the miller, and went there and found the wine. "Now go on," said he. The peasant made the raven croak again and said, "In the second place, he says that there is some roast meat in the tiled stove." "Upon my word," cried the miller, and went thither and found the roast meat. The peasant made the raven prophesy still more, and said, "Thirdly, he says that there is some salad on the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and went there and found the salad. At last the peasant pinched the raven once more, till he croaked and said, "Fourthly, he says that there are some cakes under the bed." "That would be a fine thing," cried the miller, and he looked there and found the cakes. And now the 2 sat down to the table together, but the miller's wife was frightened to death, and went to bed and took all the keys with her. The miller would have liked much to know the 5th, but the little peasant said, "First, we will quickly eat the 4 things, for the 5th is something bad." So they ate, and after that they bargained how much the miller was to give for the 5th prophecy, until they agreed on 300 thalers. Then the peasant once more pinched the raven's head till he croaked loudly. The miller asked, "What did he say?" The peasant replied, "He says that the devil is hiding outside there in the cupboard of the entrance." The miller said, "The devil must go out," and opened the house door. Then the woman was forced to give up the keys, and the peasant unlocked the cupboard. The person ran out as fast as he could, and the miller said, "It was true. I saw the rascal with my own eyes." The peasant, however, made off next morning by daybreak with the 300 thalers. At home, the small peasant gradually launched out. He built a beautiful house, and the peasant said, The small peasant has certainly been to the place where golden snow falls, and people carry the gold home in shovels." Then the small peasant was brought before the mayor, and bidden to say from whence his wealth came. He answered, "I sold my cow's skin in the town for $300. When the peasants heard that, they too wished to enjoy this great profit, and ran home, killed all their cows, and stripped off their skins in order to sell them in the town of the greatest advantage. The mayor, however, said, "But my servant must go first." When she came to the merchant in the town, he did not give her more than $2 for a skin. And when the others came, he did not give them so much, and said, "What can I do with all these skins?" Then the peasants were vexed that the small peasant should have thus overreached them, wanted to take vengeance on him, and accused him of this treachery before the mayor. The innocent little peasant was unanimously sentenced to death, and was to be rolled into the water in a barrel pierced full of holes. He was led forth, and a priest was brought, who was to say a mass for his soul. The others were all obliged to retire to a distance, and when the peasant took to the priest, he recognized the man who had been with the miller's wife. He said to him, "I set you free from the cupboard. Set me free from the barrel." At this same moment up came, with a flock of sheep, the very shepherd who, as the peasant knew, had long been wishing to be mayor. So he cried with all his might, "No, I will not do it. If the whole world insists on it, I will not do it." The shepherd, hearing that, came up to him and asked, "What art thou about? What is it thou wilt not do?" The peasant said, "They want to make me mayor, if I will but put myself in the barrel, but I will not do it." The shepherd said, "If nothing more than that is needful in order to be mayor, I would get into the barrel at once." The peasant said, "If thou wilt get in, thou wilt be mayor." The shepherd was willing, and got in, and the peasant shut the top down on him. Then he took the shepherd's flock for himself and drove it away. Do you guys like chocolate growling? You guys hear it? He adds, "They believed no otherwise than that it was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, 'That is what we intended. But first thou shalt look about thee a little down, below there.' And they rolled the barrel down into the water. After that, the peasants went home, and as they were entering the village, how sad. How curious what just happened. I'm good, I'm good. Driving a flock of sheep and looking quite contented. Then the peasants were astonished and said, "Peasant, from whence comest thou? Hast thou come out of the water? Yes, truly, replied the peasant. I sank deep, deep down until at last I got to the bottom. I pushed the bottom out of the barrel and crept out, and there were pretty meadows on which a number of lambs were feeding, and from thence I brought this flock away with me. Said the peasants, Are there any more there? Oh yes, said he, more than I could do anything with. Then the peasants made up their minds that they too would fetch some sheep for themselves, a flock apiece. But the mayor said, I come first. So they went to the water together. And just then there were some of the small fleecy clouds in the blue sky, which are called little lambs, and they were reflected in the water, whereupon the peasants cried, We already see the sheep down below. The mayor pressed forward and said, I will go down first and look about me, and if things promise, well, I'll call you. So he jumped in. Splash! Went the water. He made a sound as if he were calling them, and the whole crowd plunged in after him as one man. The entire village was dead, and the small peasant, a sole heir, became a rich man. So I didn't finish reading it on Audacity. So let me figure something out and just like re-record that real quick. They believed no otherwise than that it was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, That is what we intend. But first thou shalt look about thee a little down below there. And they rolled the barrel down into the water. I'm still not recording on Audacity. What heck? Oh, because I pressed pause. They believed no otherwise than that it was the peasant who was saying this, and answered, That is what we intended, but first thou shalt look about thee a little down below there. And they rolled the barrel down into the water. After that, the peasants went home, and as they were entering the village, the small peasant also came quietly in, driving a flock of sheep and looking quite contented. Then the peasants were astonished, and said, Peasant, from whence comest thou? Hast thou come out of the water? Yes, truly, replied the peasant. I sank deep, deep down, until at last I got to the bottom. I pushed the bottom out of the barrel, and crept out. And there were pretty meadows on which a number of lambs were feeding, and from thence I brought this flock away with me. Said the peasants, Are there any more there? Oh yes, said he, more than I could do anything with. Then the peasants made up their minds that they too would fetch some sheep for themselves, a flock apiece, but the mayor said, I come first. So they went to the water together, and just then there were some of the small fleecy clouds in the blue sky, which they called little lambs, and they were reflected in the water. Whereupon the peasants cried, We already see the sheep down below. The mayor pressed forward and said, I will go down first and look about me, and if things promise, well, I'll call you. So he jumped in. Splash! Went the water. He made a sound as if he were calling them, and the whole crowd plunged in after him as one man. Then the entire village was dead, and the small peasant as sole heir became a rich man. Isn't that story silly? We did have some issues with the recording, but you know what? It's chocolate. Who doesn't love chocolate? Anyone's gonna complain about hearing a dog in the background can kiss my ass. The little peasant. Definitely a German story, yeah. My dog's name is Chocolate. Oh yes, so I remember your question. Also, thank you Nonam for the follow. Mwah. Then let me have them out back if they will have an issue with my grandpa. Drew! Little peasant chocolate's cut. Yeah. I'm gonna let Chocolate go outside because I think that's why he was having a tough time. I'm also thinking about turning on the air conditioner, so I may take like a small like 5-minute BRB if that's okay with you guys. Cause the air conditioner is gonna be like heard and it's pretty loud and I don't want it to bother you guys, so do a small little BRB, refill my water and all that, and then read some more stories. Thank you, Kita. Thank you, Snipe. Also, Ernesto, I hope you're here. It was called Thaler. The spelling is Thaler. Thales. Thaler. That's how it's pronounced. Have a good night, Saber. Have a great day tomorrow. Okay. Yes, just like that. Thaler. Alright, I'm gonna take a small 5-minute break to get everything settled and also just so I don't feel hot while reading. I'll be back. Thank you so much. Ethan00 for the follow. Emerald Miner 18 for the follow. And James David Walker 160606 for the follow. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our lovely little village, darlings. Welcome on home. It's so nice to meet you all. I'm using Streamlabs to record since I could just press record and then end it. Alright, I took chocolate out. He's the bathroom. He's the bathroom. He's a happy boy. He's a very happy boy. Thank you. Thank you, Naita. Thank you, Ita. Yeah, he's a happy boy, and I sadly do not have him with me because he wants to go. He wants to be with Mama, sir. Naughty age. Thank you so much for the follow, sweetheart. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our lovely little village. Yes, now we are back to reading our stories. Oink, oink. Alright, let's continue then. The Golden Key. In the winter time, when the deep snow lay on the ground, a poor boy was forced to go out on a sledge to fetch wood. When he had gathered it together and packed it, he wished, as he was so frozen with cold, not to go home at once, but to light a fire and warm himself a little. So he scraped away the snow, and as he was thus clearing the ground, he found a tiny gold key. Hereupon he thought that where the key was, the lock must also be, and dug in the ground and found an iron chest. If the key does but fit it, thought he, no doubt there are precious things in that little box. He searched, but no keyhole was there. At last he discovered one, but so small that it was hardly visible. He tried it, and the key fitted it exactly. Then he turned it once round, and now we must wait until he has quite unlocked it and opened the lid, and then we shall learn what wonderful things were lying in that box. That's it. That's the story. I don't understand the purpose of that story, but it's a story. It's a story. I can definitely say that. I don't know what else to say, but it's a story. Hello, Johnny. Welcome on in. The other story will not be as short as that one, so never fear, I suppose. We're reading stories, as it is a nice story time kind of night. Sharing joy and sorrow. There once was a tailor who was a quarrelsome fellow, and his wife, who was good, industrious, and pious, never could please him. Whatever she did, he was not satisfied, but grumbled and scolded, and knocked her about, and beat her. As the authorities at last heard of it, they had him summoned and put in prison in order to make him better. He was kept for a while on bread and water, and then set free again. He was forced, however, to promise not to beat his wife any more, but to live with her in peace, and share joy and sorrow with her, as married people ought to do. All went well for a time, and then he fell into his old ways, and was surly and quarrelsome. And because he dared not beat her, he would seize her by the hair and tear it out. The woman escaped from him and sprang out into the yard, but he ran after her with his yard measure and scissors, and chased her about, and threw the yard measure and scissors at her, and whatever else came his way. When he hit her, he laughed, and when he missed her, he stormed and swore. This went on so long that the neighbors came to the wife's assistance. The tailor was again summoned before the magistrates, and reminded of his promise. "Dear gentlemen," said he, "I have kept my word. I have not beaten her, but have shared joy and sorrow with her." "How can that be," said the judge, "when she continually brings such heavy complaints against you?" "I have not beaten her, but just because she looked so strange I wanted to comb her hair with my hand. She, however, got away from me and left me quite spiteful. Then I hurried after her, and in order to bring her back to her duty, I threw at her as a well-meant admonition whatever came readily to hand. I have shared joy and sorrow with her also, for whenever I hit her, I was full of joy, and she of sorrow, and if I missed, then she was joyful, and I sorry." The judges were not satisfied with this answer, but gave him the reward he deserved. Jail. Hello, Green Cat. Welcome on in. How are you? We are currently reading fairy tales. We are reading magical fairy tales. He got Jill. Let's go. Yeah, he sucked. We hate him. He was terrible. Boo. How are you, Green Cat? I hope you are doing well. And on to the next story. The Nail. A merchant had done good business at the fair. He had sold his wares and lined his money bags with gold and silver. Then he wanted to travel homewards and be in his own house before nightfall. So he packed his trunk with the money on his horse and rode away. At noon he rested in a town, and when he wanted to go farther, the stable boy brought out his horse and said, "A nail is wanting, sir, in the shoe of its left hind foot." "Let it be wanting," answered the merchant. The shoe will certainly stay on for the 6 miles I have still to go. I am in a hurry." In the afternoon, when he once more alighted and had his horse fed, the stable boy went into the room to him and said, "Sir, a shoe is missing from your horse's left hind foot. Shall I take him to the blacksmith?" "Let it still be wanting," answered the man. "The horse can very well hold out for the couple of miles which remain. I am in haste." He rode forth, but before long the horse began to limp. It had not limped long before it began to stumble, and it had not stumbled long before it fell down and broke its leg. The merchant was forced to leave the horse where it was and unbuckle the trunk, take it on his back, and go home on foot. And there he did not arrive until quite late at night. "And that unlucky nail," said he to himself, "has caused all this disaster. Hasten slowly." I like the message of that. Take others' advice and do not rush when there is no need to rush. Very, very good, very good. Thank you for spending time with me. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying them. Welcome back, Kyuju. Hello, Diego. Do you not understand the story, Johnny? Tom Thumb. There once was a poor peasant who sat in the evening by the hearth and poked the fire, and his wife sat and span. Then said he, "How sad is it that we have no children? With us all is so quiet, and in other houses it is noisy and lively." "Yes," replied the wife and sighed. "Even if we had only one, and it were quite small and only as big as a thumb, I should be quite satisfied, and we would still love it with all our hearts." Now it so happened that the woman fell ill, and after 7 months gave birth to a child that was perfect in all its limbs, but no longer than a thumb. Then said they, "It is as we wished it to be, and it shall be our dear child." And because of its size, they called it Tom Thumb. They did not let it want for food, but the child did not grow taller, but remained as it had been at the first. Nevertheless, it looked sensibly out of its eyes, and soon showed itself to be a wise and nimble creature, for everything it did turned out well. One day, the peasant was getting ready to go into the forest to cut wood, when he said as if to himself, "How I wish that there was anyone who would bring the cart to me." "Oh, father," cried Tom Thumb, "I will soon bring the cart. Rely on that. It shall be in the forest at the appointed time." The man smiled and said, "How can that be done? Thou art far too small to lead the horse by the reins." "That's of no consequence, father. If my mother will only harness it, I shall sit in the horse's ear and call out to him how he is to go." "Well," answered the man, "for once we will try it." When the time came, the mother harnessed the horse and placed Tom Thumb in its ear, and then the little creature cried, "Gee up! Gee up!" Then it went quite properly as if with its master, and the cart went the right way into the forest. It so happened that just as he was turning a corner and the little one was crying, "Gee up!" two strange men came towards him. "My word," said one of them, "what is this? There is a cart coming and a driver is calling to the horse, and still he is not to be seen." "That can't be right," said the other. "We will follow the cart and see where it stops." The cart, however, drove right into the forest, and exactly to the place where the wood had been cut. When Tom Thumb saw his father, he cried to him, "Seest thou, father? Here I am with the cart. Now take me down." The father got hold of the horse with his left hand, and with the right took his little son out of the ear. Tom Thumb sat down quite merrily on a straw, but when the two strange men saw him, they did not know what to say for astonishment. Then one of them took the other aside and said, "Hark! The little fellow would make our fortune if we exhibited him in a large town for money. We will buy him." They went to the peasant and said, "Sell us the little man. He shall be well treated with us." "No," replied the father. "He is the apple of my eye, and all the money in the world cannot buy him from me." Tom Thumb, however, when he heard of the bargain, had crept up the folds of his father's coat, placed himself on his shoulder, and whispered in his ear, "Father, do give me away. I will soon come back again." Then the father parted with him to the two men for a handsome bit of money. "Where wilt thou sit?" they said to him. "Oh, just set me on the rim of your hat, and then I can walk backwards and forwards and look at the country and still not fall down." They did as he wished, and when Tom Thumb had taken leave of his father, they went away with him. They walked until it was dusk, and then the little fellow said, "Do take me down. I want to come down." The man took off his hat and put the little fellow on the ground by the wayside, and he leapt and crept about a little between the sods, and then he suddenly slipped into a mouse hole which he had sought out. "Good evening, gentlemen, just go home without me," he cried to them and mocked them. They ran thither and stuck their sticks into the mouse hole, but it was all lost labor. Tom Thumb crept still farther in, and as it soon became quite dark, they were forced to go home with their vexation in their empty purses. When Tom Thumb saw that they were gone, he crept back out of the subterranean passage. "It is so dangerous to walk on the ground in the dark," said he. "How easily a neck or a leg is broken. Fortunately, he knocked against an empty snail shell. Thank God," said he, "in that I can pass the night in safety," and got into it. Not long afterwards, when he was just going to sleep, he heard two men go by, and one of them was saying, "How shall we contrive to get hold of the rich pastor's silver and gold?" "I could tell thee that," cried Thumb, interrupting them. "What was that?" said one of the thieves in fright. "I heard someone speaking." They stood still listening, and Tom Thumb spoke again and said, "Take me with you, and I'll help you." "But where art thou?" "Just look on the ground and observe from whence my voice comes," he replied. There the thieves at length found him and lifted him up. "Thou little imp, how wilt thou help us?" they said. "A great deal," said he. "I will creep into the pastor's room through the iron bars, and will reach out to you whatever you want to have." "Come then," they said, "and we will see what thou canst do." When they got to the pastor's house, Tom Thumb crept into the room, but instantly cried out with all his might, "Do you want to have everything that is here?" The thieves were alarmed and said, "But do speak softly so as not to waken anyone." Tom Thumb, however, behaved as if he had not understood this, and cried again, "What do you want? Do you want to have everything that is here?" The cook, who slept in the next room, heard this and sat up in bed and listened. The thieves, however, had in their fright run some distance away, but at last they took courage and thought, "The little rascal wants to mock us." They came back and whispered to him, "Come, be serious and reach something out to us." Then Tom Thumb again cried as loudly as he could, "I really will give you everything, just put your hands in." The maid, who was listening, heard this quite distinctly and jumped out of bed and rushed to the door. The thieves took flight and ran as if the wild huntsmen were behind them, but as the maid could not see anything, she went to strike a light. When she came to the place with it, Tom Thumb, unperceived, betook himself to the granary, and the maid, after she had examined every corner and found nothing, lay down in her bed again, and believed that, after all, she had only been dreaming with open eyes and ears. Tom Thumb had climbed up among the hay and found a beautiful place to sleep in. There he intended to rest until day, and then go home again to his parents. But he had other things to go through. Truly, there is much affliction and misery in this world. When the day dawned, the maid arose from her bed to feed the cows. Her first walk was into the barn, where she laid hold of an armful of hay, and precisely that very one in which poor Tom Thumb was lying asleep. He, however, was sleeping so soundly that he was aware of nothing, and did not awake until he was in the mouth of the cow, who had picked him up with the hay. "Ah, heavens!" cried he, "how have I got into the fulling mill?" But he soon discovered where he was. Then it was necessary to be careful not to let himself go between the teeth and be dismembered, but he was nevertheless forced to slip down into the stomach with the hay. "In this little room the windows are forgotten," said he, "and no sun shines in. Neither will a candle be brought." His quarters were especially unpleasing to him, and the worst was, more and more hay was always coming in by the door, and the space grew less and less. Then at length, in his anguish, he cried as loud as he could, "Bring me no more fodder! Bring me no more fodder!" The maid was just milking the cow, and when she heard someone speaking and saw no one, and perceived that it was the same voice that she had heard in the night, she was so terrified that she slipped off her stool and spilt the milk. She ran in great haste to her master and said, "Oh heavens, pastor, the cow has been speaking." "Thou art mad," replied the pastor, but he went himself to the byre to see what was there. Hardly, however, had he set his foot inside when Tom Thumb again cried, "Bring me no fodder, no more fodder, bring me no more fodder." Then the pastor himself was alarmed, and thought that an evil spirit had gone into the cow and ordered her to be killed. She was killed, but the stomach, in which Tom Thumb was thrown on the midden. Tom Thumb had great difficulty in working his way. However, he succeeded so far as to get some room, but just as he was going to thrust his head out, a new misfortune occurred. A hungry wolf ran thither and swallowed the whole stomach at one gulp. Tom Thumb did not lose courage. "Perhaps," thought he, "the wolf will listen to what I have got to say." And he called to him from out of his stomach, "Dear wolf, I know of a magnificent feast for thee." "Where is it to be held?" said the wolf. "In such and such a house. Thou must creep into it through the kitchen sink, and wilt find cakes and bacon and sausages and as much of them as thou canst eat." And he described to him exactly his father's house. The wolf did not require to be told this twice, squeezed himself in at night through the sink, and ate to his heart's content in the larder. When he had eaten his fill, he wanted to go out again, but he had become so big that he could not go out by the same way. Tom Thumb had reckoned on this, and now began to make a violent noise in the wolf's body, and raged and screamed as loudly as he could. "Wilt thou be quiet?" said the wolf. "Thou wilt waken up the people." What?" replied the little fellow. "Thou hast eaten thy fill, and I will make merry likewise," and began once more to scream with all his strength. At last his father and mother were aroused by it, and ran to the room and looked in through the opening in the door. When they saw that a wolf was inside, they ran away, and the husband fetched his axe, and the wife the scythe. "Stay behind," said the man, when they entered the room. "When I have given him a blow, if he is not killed by it, thou must cut him down and hew his body to pieces." Then Tom Thumb heard his parents' voices and cried, "Dear father, I am here. I am in the wolf's body." Said the father, full of joy, "Thank God, our dear child has found us again," and bade the woman take away her scythe, that Tom Thumb might not be hurt with it. After that he raised his arm and struck the wolf with such a blow on his head that he fell down dead. And then they got knives and scissors and cut the body open and drew the little fellow forth. "Ah," said the father, "what sorrow we have gone through for thy sake." "Yes, father, I have gone about the world a great deal. Thank heaven I breathe fresh air again." "Where hast thou been, then?" "Ah, father, I have been in a mouse's hole, in a cow's stomach, and then in a wolf's nose. Now I will stay with you, and we will not sell thee again, no, not for all the riches in the world. said his parents, and they embraced and kissed their dear Tom Thumb. They gave him to eat and to drink and had some new clothes made for him, for his own had been spoiled on his journey. You guys like that? I liked it. He's home forever now with his family. Oh, Zeus, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you. Cool auto. Fuck you. Shall we read once more? Or one last one for the night? Or two more actually, because the story after this I really like. This is a reading of Grimm's Fairy Tales. Yeah, it is. It is. So, remember how they said that they would never light the sun when they said, in quote, that he will stay with his mother and father? It is cute and ominous. Well, he lied, by the way. Tom Thumb, Journeyman. A certain tailor had a son who happened to be small and no bigger than a thumb, and on his account he was always called Tom Thumb. He had, however, some courage in him, and said to his father, "Father, I must go and will go out into the world." "That's right, my son," said the old man, and took a long darning needle, and made a knob of sealing wax on it at the candle. "And there is a sword for thee to take with thee on the way." Then the little tailor wanted to have one more meal with them, and hopped into the kitchen to see what his lady mother had cooked for the last time. It was, however, just dished up, and the dish stood on the hearth. Then he said, "Mother, what is there to eat today?" "See for thyself," said his mother. So Tom Thumb jumped on to the hearth, and peeped into the dish, but as he stretched his neck in too far, the steam from the food caught hold of him, and carried him up the chimney. He rode about in the air on the steam for a while, until at length he sank down to the ground again. Now the little tailor was outside in the wide world, and he travelled about, and went to a master in his craft, but the food was not good enough for him. "Mistress, if you give us no better food," said Tom Thumb, "I will go away, and early tomorrow morning I will write with chalk on the door of your house: Too many potatoes, too little meat. Farewell, Mr. Potato King." "What wouldst thou have forsooth, grasshopper?" said the mistress, and grew hangry, and seized a dishcloth, and was just going to strike him, But my little tailor crept nimbly under a thimble, peeped out from beneath it, and put his tongue out at the mistress. She took up the thimble and wanted to get hold of him, but little Tom Thumb hopped into the cloth, and while the mistress was opening it out and looking for him, he got into a crevice in the table. "Ho, ho, lady mistress," cried he, and thrust his head out, and when she began to strike him, he leapt down into the drawer. At last, however, she caught him and drove him out of the house. The little tailor journeyed on and came to a great forest, and there he fell in with a band of robbers who had designed to steal the king's treasure. When they saw the little tailor, they thought, "A little fellow like that can creep through a keyhole and serve a prick-lock to us." "Hollo!" cried one of them. "Thou giant Goliath, wilt thou go to the treasure chamber with us? Thou canst slip thyself in and throw out the money." Tom Thumb reflected a while, and at length he said, "Yes," and went with them to the treasure chamber. Then he looked at the doors above and below to see if there was any crack in them. It was not long before he espied one which was broad enough to let him in. He was therefore about to get in at once, but one of the two sentries who stood before the door observed him and said to the other, "What an ugly spider is creeping there! I will kill it." "Let the poor creature alone," said the other. "It has done thee no harm." Then Tom Thumb got safely through the crevice into the treasure chamber, opened the window beneath which the robbers were standing, and threw out to them one thaler after another. When the little tailor was in the full swing of his work, he heard the king coming to inspect his treasure chamber, and crept hastily into a hiding place. The king noticed that several solid thalers were missing, but could not conceive who could have stolen them, for locks and bolts were in good condition, and all seemed well guarded. Then he went away again and said to the sentries, "Be on the watch. Someone is after the money." When therefore Tom Thumb recommenced his labors, they heard the money moving, and a sound of clink, clink, clink. They ran swiftly in to seize the thief, but the little tailor, who heard them coming, was still swifter, and leapt into a corner and covered himself with a thaler, so that nothing could be seen of him. And at the same time he mocked the sentries and cried, "Here I am!" The sentries ran thither, but as they got there, he had already hopped into another corner under a thaler, and was crying, "Ho, ho, here am I!" The watchman sprang there in haste, but Tom Thumb had long ago got into a third corner, and was crying, "Ho, ho, here am I!" And thus he made fools of them, and drove them so long around about the treasure chamber that they were weary and went away. Then, by degrees, he threw all the thalers out, dispatching the last with all his might, then hopped nimbly upon it, and flew down with it through the window. The robbers paid him great compliments. "Thou art a valiant hero," said they. "Wilt thou be our captain?" Tom Thumb, however, declined, and said he wanted to see the world first. They now divided the booty, But the little tailor only asked for a cruiser because he could not carry more. Then he once more buckled on his sword, bade the robbers goodbye, and took to the road. First he went to work with some masters, but he had no liking for that, and at last he hired himself as a manservant in an inn. The maids, however, could not endure him, for he saw all they did secretly without their seeing him. And he told their master and mistress what they had taken off the plates and carried away out of the cellar for themselves. Then said they, "Wait, and we will pay thee off," and arranged with each other to play him a trick. Soon afterwards, when one of the maids was mowing in the garden and saw Tom Thumb jumping about and creeping up and down the plants, she mowed him up quickly with the grass, tied all in a great cloth, and secretly threw it to the cows. Now amongst them there was a great black one, who swallowed him down without hurting him. Down below, however, it pleased him ill, for it was quite dark, neither was any candle burning. When the cow was being milked, he cried, "Strip, strap, stroll, will the pail soon be full?" But the noise of the milking prevented his being understood. After this, the master of the house came into the cow byre and said, "That cow shall be killed tomorrow." Then Tom Thumb was so alarmed that he cried out in a clear voice, "Let me out first, for I am shut up inside her." The master heard that quite well, but did not know whence the voice came. "Where art thou?" asked he. "In the black one," answered Tom Thumb. But the master did not understand what that meant, and went out. Next morning the cow was killed. Happily Tom Thumb did not meet with one blow at the cutting up and chopping. He got among the sausage meat, and when the butcher came in and began his work, he cried out with all his might, "Don't chop too deep, don't chop too deep, I am amongst it." No one heard this because of the noise of the chopping knife. Now poor Tom Thumb was in trouble, but trouble sharpened the wits, and he sprang out so adroitly between the blows that none of them touched him, and he escaped with a whole skin. But still he could not get away. There was nothing for it but to let himself be thrust into a black pudding with the bits of bacon. His quarters there were rather confined, and besides that he was hung up in the chimney to be smoked, and their time did hang terribly heavy on his hands. At length in winter he was taken down again, as the black pudding had to be set before a guest. When the hostess was cutting it in slices, he took care not to stretch out his head too far, lest a bit of it should be cut off. At last he saw his opportunity, cleared a passage for himself, and jumped out. The little tailor, however, would not stay any longer in a house where he fared so ill, so at once set out on his journey again. But his liberty did not last long. In the open country he met with a fox, who snapped him up in a fit of absence. "Hollo, Mr. Fox," cried the little tailor. "It is I who am sticking in your throat. Set me at liberty again." "Thou art right," answered the fox. "Thou art next to nothing for me, but if thou wilt promise me the fowls in thy father's yard, I will let thee go." "With all my heart," replied Tom Thumb. Thou shalt have all the cocks and hens that I promised thee. Then the fox let him go again, and himself carried home. When the father once more saw his dear son, he willingly gave the fox all the fowls which he had. For this I likewise bring thee a handsome bit of money, said Tom Thumb, and gave his father the cruiser which he earned on his travels. But why did the fox get the poor chickens to eat? Oh, you goose! Your father would surely love his child far more than the fowls in the yard. That's it. That's the story. Very wholesome. Don't laugh. I know you guys want to laugh. I know, I was trying so hard not to laugh. Can I what? Can I what? Can I what, Eduardo? I know, right? Such a wholesome story. Thank you so much for the follows, by the way. Thank you, the big Herbador. Thank you, Enigma Lavender. Thank you to IQ Void. And thank you, Anexi Wolf. This is not the one I'm going to read now is going to be the last for the night. You're a real one for that night, though. You're a real one for that. I know, right, Anexi? I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know this isn't what I normally do for ASMR nights, but I thought it would be a nice little project and side thing for us to do, you know? Much love, everyone. I like it. It's nice. Do I like it? I'm glad you guys like it. Of course I enjoy it. So nice and come here. Thank you. Anything so kiss. Thank you. And thank you so much for the compliment, Spensuda, of my reading voice. And someone says, ew, says well, but my 48-hour day order and still has 5 minutes left, so I low-key know it isn't me. What the fuck? What did I fucking just read? Hello? Alright, we caught it. This is really nice. Different from book club, but it's still really nice, right? It's very different from book club for sure. I really like it. I find a deep enjoyment in reading. But I also like really enjoy the way I have ASMR set up. Like, I feel like this is very like visually pleasing to look at. So I'm very happy about that. I feel like I finally like did good. Made it very visually appealing. Visual ASMR. It is. Thank you. God, it took me so long to get this going. Thank you, Kyuju. It does make things interesting, changing things up from the norm. Are you ready for the last fairy tale for the night, chat? It's on the sweet spot between fucking with our childhood memories and showing us amazing grim stories. I'm loving it. I'm glad you are. Thank you. Okay, alright. Let's do it then. Sweet porridge. There was a poor but good little girl who lived alone with her mother, and they no longer had anything to eat. So the child went into the forest, and there an aged woman met her, who was aware of her sorrow, and presented her with a little pot, which when she said, "Cook, little pot, cook," would cook good, sweet porridge. And when she said, "Stop, little pot," it ceased to cook. The little girl took the pot home to her mother, and now they were freed from their poverty and hunger and ate sweet porridge as often as they chose. Once on a time, when the girl had gone out, her mother said, "Cook, little pot, cook." And it did cook, and she ate till she was satisfied, and then she wanted the pot to stop cooking, but did not know the word. So it went on cooking, and the porridge rose over the edge, and still it cooked on until the kitchen and the whole house were full. And then the next house, and then the whole street, just as if it wanted to satisfy the hunger of the whole world. And there was the greatest distress, but no one knew how to stop it. At last, when only one single house remained, the child came home and just said, "Stop, little pot." And it stopped and gave up cooking, and whosoever wished to return to the town had to eat his way back. That's it. That's the story. I really like this one. This one is my favorite one I've read so far. Cute, right? It was very cute. It was cute and simple. We made good progress. We're 34 pages in. Or technically 35. Because now the next story we read is The Young Giant, which will happen, I don't know. It'll happen eventually. It'll happen eventually. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for spending time with me and letting me do this. I had a blast. I really did. But now it is time for me to upload some videos and go to bed. Who first told these stories? Poor present, you face real and terrifying famines. Yeah, very terrifying famines. I won't tell my children about the greatest Saki Valentine was to me because you're the reason why you do is so pure to me and that you need to be remembered, Brochacho. Thank you, cute Jill. Thank you. I really try my best to find new wholesome activities for everyone to really enjoy and relax to and unwind to. And I feel like reading like fairy tales is such a nice way to like embrace your inner child while also like learning about the fables of the 1800s and such. And seeing the real stories behind like the reimagines. If that makes sense. But yeah, I find it very interesting, and I find it really like curious about like the way old people used to write. It's really nice. It's really nice and interesting because it's like, wow, I get to read like old time literature and get to like kind of like you know, think about that, and while also having a nice fairy tale. Rapunzel was absolutely scandalous back then. Always do your best because you're never give up on your dreams. Keep doing what you love. Thank you, Dragon. I haven't heard of fairy tales in what feels like a million years. Exactly. So like, let's read some fairy tales, right? Sensura, thank you so much for becoming a flow. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our lovely little village. If this is your first time over there, Sensura, I have many, many, many things. if you ever have sleepless nights and need to relax. But yeah, that's it for me. I'm going to mark where we are and rest. I have a lot of content to seems me. Yeah, I do. I have like literally 1,000 videos. Or maybe that's also including my shorts, so never mind. Because I think some of those include my shorts, so I have a lot though. Although the popular one we all know and love is, to be fair, way more early modern English grandiose than what was literal German originals written as. You are the best, Kyuju. It's still a lot you make. I do. I really love what I do, and I'm very grateful to do it. So, you know, if you love what you do, why not do more of it? It is an honor and a privilege to be able to do this. So I want to show everyone how appreciative I am by putting my best foot forward all the time and trying my best. This is great. I look forward to this again. Have a good night, Saki. I hope more people discover you. This is a great thing you're doing. Thank you. It's time to sleep for me. Good night. Can't thank you enough. Good night. I am going to bed too, so I'm going to read someone. Let us go and say hello to okay. Let's say hello to Zyla Serenity, I believe is her name. Bye bye, Ernesto. Goodbye, everyone. Good night, Anexi. Good night, Kyoto. Good night, Diego. Have a good night, everyone. Good night, Snipe. Good night, Night Opening. Good night, Zeus. Good night, Anvil. Good night, Dragon. Good night, John Woo. Good night, Johnny. Good night, Fishy. Good night, Kita. Good night, everyone. Please sleep well, okay? Have wonderful, wonderful dreams. Good night, Jonathan. Good night, Goose. Good night, Josh. Good night, everyone. Is it really make... Oh, I'm so happy I can make your day better, Kyoju. Thank you. It is such an honor. You have no idea, but you and everyone really do make my days better too. So thank you. Good night, Ernesto. Banana. banana, 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 banana. Banana. Good night, good night, good night, good night, smile. Good night, everyone.